Well, good morning, everyone. Thomas Montgomery here. It is a beautiful Monday morning. Today is Veterans Day. Thank you all, those of you that have served or have family members that have served to make our country safe and great. Today is, again, Monday, November 11th, 2024. We get together most weekday mornings at 8 o'clock Central, talk about strategies, tips, techniques, share success stories, support each of you. We have two types of Zooms. These morning Zooms are primarily for our distribution partners, whereby we have a different set of Zooms that are available focused on explaining the value proposition to prospective clients. Anyone's welcome to attend any Zoom, but this morning we'll be talking to you from the perspective of being a distribution partner. So we can see we have the topic up here. We're going to talk about Shelf Corp financials today. And this is really important because regardless if you're an affiliate or a white label partner, we're going to dig deep into the kind of the underpinnings of the Shelf Corps and reveal some information you might not have known, but is very important. We have a number of you on who have purchased Shelf corporations, Mr. Brown, Mr. Keller, amongst others. And so this is the target, the red circle in the middle of the target for each of you who have already purchased a Shelf Corp. All right, so a bit of background before we dig in. What do we know? We know that when a client purchases a Shelf Corp, they're getting three streams of money. Very important that you understand three distinct streams. Most people come to us because they want a fundable business, which would allow them to get funding, typically a bank loan, often but not always an SBA loan, anywhere from $100,000 to $5 million. But that's number one. And I think that's kind of obvious, right? Entrepreneurs often need money to start, to grow, to reach their potential. They usually can't accomplish that because they don't have a fundable business, but you and I can allow them to very easily have a fundable business through the Shelf Corp. Then we can go to funding. So we're not going to talk much about that today. I think that's easily understood. The second source of money through the Shelf Corp we've talked about recently. I hope you now understand it because I think some of you didn't before. And it is specifically liquidating the AR. We provide $100,000, which is different than number one. Each of these are different. That's why they're a different number. We provide $100,000 of AR included for free, which with each Shelf Corp that serves as collateral. But my point here is we can actually help them liquidate that. That was almost our topic today, but this one moved up to the top of the list. We may talk more about that tomorrow. Today, we're going to talk about number three, because I frankly think some of you are dismissing this, and that's horrible. And so again, not to throw anyone under the bus, but we have now 6 of you on the line, at least 6 that I can count quickly, that have bought Shelf corporations. And even those of you that have bought, those of you that have paid $10,000 or more for a Shelf Corp, I feel like you're not paying attention to this, and we should be. So earned income is the third category. That's what we're going to talk about today. We set Shelf Corps up under NAICS code 54161, which essentially is management consulting services. So if you see here on the shared screen, everyone should see my screen. We're looking at industry data for management consulting services. So every business is going to have an industry code. When we form Shelf corporations, we form them under this industry code. Why? Because it's one of the easiest to get funding. We had a discussion yesterday with some of you that said, well, what if the client's goal is not really to do management consulting services? Well, that's okay, that there's not a restriction or a limitation, but maybe just one division, one aspect of their business is consulting, because consulting is kind of a catch-all, right? I mean, look at the smart people we have on here. Any of you could be a consultant if you wanted to consult. You don't have to. So regardless of what your other, you could form a restaurant, but you could still do some restaurant consulting, right? So you can't go wrong with this industry code because it's a great catch-all. It's very fundable. But I'm going to look at it or we're going to discuss it today, not just as a generic, how did we pick it, but let's actually operate it. So again, Mr. Brown, you bought a Shelf Corp. Mr. Keller, you bought a Shelf Corp. There's a number of you. And so do you, Mr. Brown and Mr. Keller, realize you should be operating your Shelf Corp? So in addition to getting ready to get a loan, in addition to liquidating the AR, we should be making money with our businesses, because that's really what businesses are supposed to do, is make money. So management consulting services. So I'm pulling from industry data, nothing that I typed up, nothing that I made up. So from this industry, this code, the average management consulting service provider operates out of a single location, typically employs 5 or fewer employees, and generates 3.4 million annually. So you can start to see, okay, well, this does make sense why we're picking that industry code for the shelf corporations, because it doesn't take a whole lot of people, because we can't lie, right? We can't go say that we're something that we're not, but any of us can be a consultant. So we can operate this on a single location, which we provide with the shelf, so they have a good, credible location. They can have a small number of employees, but they generate usually a lot of money. Now, I'm not here to judge any of you, but my hunch is a lot of you are not currently making $3.4 million a year. So this actually increases your borrowing capacity, because we're picking an industry that reasonably projects that we'll have a lot of money coming in. Well, why is it important that we project we have a lot of money coming in? Well, if you're wanting to borrow a lot of money, we have to show the lender that you can afford to pay it back, right? If we chose dog sitting as an industry, you're not going to make a whole lot of money, most likely, being a dog sitter. Therefore, we wouldn't be able to borrow much money, because we could never win the argument that we're going to have enough cash flow to pay it back. Any questions or comments on that first paragraph, or what we've discussed so far? So all Shelf Corps are set up under this industry code. And here's some general industry data. We're going to look more. There's more to go through, but any questions so far? So Mr. Brown and Mr. Keller and the others of you that have bought a Shelf Corp, we need to be operating your Shelf Corp this week. We need your Shelf Corp to be making money starting this week. Those of you that are out selling Shelf Corps, like Mr. Tufo and others, don't dismiss and think, oh, the only reason you buy a Shelf Corp is to go borrow money. That was one of the 3, right? Well, let me put it back up there. I know some of you came in late. So there's 3 streams of money for a Shelf Corp: borrowing money, liquidating the AR, but we're talking about earned income. So I think some people are not as sophisticated as you and I. And I think some people think they can go borrow hundreds of thousands of dollars or millions of dollars and not have to justify it. But that's what we do. That's our role. We're called technical advisors. So with that being said, it's interesting to know about the industry that you're in. And I would argue, those of you, even if you've not bought a Shelf Corp, now Corinthian, she's bought 2, but let's take Celino, for example. Celino is one of our distribution partners, but he doesn't own a Shelf Corp. But I would still argue that Celino and the rest of you, this is probably the industry that you're in, just by the nature of being a distribution partner with us. So when we build business plans for funding, we need to pull in some industry information, and this is some information. So we talk about strengths and weaknesses. We can look at breakdowns of who owns typically management consulting firms. Unfortunately, very few of these are minority owned. We're really looking at changing the complexion of who are management consultants with a greater emphasis on minority owned management consulting firms, female owned management consulting firms, and more veterans. These are our three target audiences, just so you know. And then here's how the legal structures are normally broken out. There's benchmarks. And so when we're putting together the financial projections for the Shelf Corps, we need to be cognizant of how our projections are different from the industry overall, because this is not a game of Monopoly. You can't just throw out numbers and say, I want $1 billion and here's my projections. The lenders are going to look at what your industry is and determine, is what you're projecting reasonable or not. So for example, for net profit, for our financial forecast for Shelf corporations, we're projecting a 21% profit margin. Well, that's actually quite a bit higher than the industry benchmark of 11. So we're going to have to be able to defend why our Shelf Corps are twice as profitable as management consulting firms in general, but we do defend that. We can talk about risks. So we look at the risk, and again, this is adjusted for the individual industry. So remember, you and I help clients either buy or build. The buy is getting a Shelf Corp. The build is going from scratch. So we can go in and change industry codes, and then all of this data would change. But we have great resources, great intellectual capital to be able to build really strong financial projections. Company risk, competitive bidding, dependence on key personnel, dependence on key clients. What I really like, let me show you, is funder questions. So if we're taking Mr. Brown or Mr. Keller or others of you, Corinthian, who have bought, in her case, 2 Shelf Corps, we know what lenders are most concerned about specific to the industry. So let's go through that, because these are questions we have to be prepared to answer. So a lender's likely going to ask, well, what type of projects typically require capital financing? Because think about that. So let's go with Rachel, who just joined. Well, welcome, Rachel. So let's say Rachel becomes a distribution partner of ours. What does it cost to become a distribution partner with us? 0. What's the required investment? Really nothing. So then if Rachel is running a management consulting firm and we're going to go try to borrow hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars through the Shelf Corp model, we got to start explaining, well, why do we need all this money? Because it's not like a restaurant where we need to go buy or lease a facility and go get inventory and have lots of staff of waiters and waitresses and cooks and so forth, dishwashers. So we have to explain, well, why is it that we would need this money? Because inherently, management consulting is actually a low cost structure business, which is great. We have to cover what the startup costs are, what type of investment we need in information systems, technology, what role capital plays, and so forth. And so there's key questions that we can prepare for funding based upon the client's industry. Again, for the Shelf Corp, we have literally gone in and identified what we believe, and most would agree, the number one industry to be fundable. So who has questions on what we're trying to discuss here? If you sell a Shelf corporation, that's great. You make money off of it, but we need to be focused, of course, on the client benefiting. Clients benefit 3 ways. We've provided them a fundable business so we can go get a loan. We can liquidate and should liquidate their AR, so that turns into cash. And then there's also earned income. I think some of you are just entirely ignoring this. All right, so Mr. Booker's got a question on earned income, so that's a fair question. So let's go over to the forecast, and we can look at profit and loss. Oh, where are we at here? Financial tables, 2024. Second here to navigate. Where I need to get to, why is, oh, that's because we got to scroll over. That's the issue. Yeah, we were too early in the year. It popped up at the beginning of 2024 when we didn't operate. Sorry, it's thrown off because it was all blank. But so let's take, let's go back to Mr. Booker. So let's say that Mr. Booker sells a Shelf Corp to Joseph today. And so Joseph now owns a Shelf Corp. We know the industry that's under. Our responsibility is to deliver three things for Joseph. We want him to have a fundable business so we can go borrow money, the money that he wants to take on as a loan. Secondly, we need to help him liquidate his AR. And third, we want to help him earn income. So Mr. Booker, if I understood his question correctly, is asking about revenue. Well, so we project out how much revenue will come in each month from the Shelf Corporation. But this isn't just BS. This is literally what we think will happen and what we'll do to work with them. So Mr. Brown, Mr. Keller, Corinthian times 2, all of you that have bought a Shelf Corp, we need to actually be doing this, not just talking about it. So, for example, Mr. Keller, we need to make sure that your revenue this month is right around 120,000. So when we say that's money literally going into your bank account. Is all of that profit? Of course not. There's going to be costs. And so we anticipate that for each Shelf Corp, our gross margin's around 23%. And then there's going to be rent. There's going to be typically phone and internet expenses, marketing, and then of course, whatever salary, whatever you want to pay yourself. But as we scroll down, scroll down a bit, we can see that the net profit, even from month 1, is projected to be 25,000. So that's what's left over after all the bills are paid in the first month of a new business. Not so bad. And of course, that continues to grow as our revenue grows, because a lot of our expenses are direct versus variable. So we set this up to be able to support a large capital raise based upon putting together a full business plan with all these different aspects. We put together, let me show you the uses of funds, get down here. So when we set up a Shelf Corp, we're setting it up for a base case of $100,000 capital raise. Now we actually gross that up to 110%, so that way we can show that the borrower is quote unquote putting in 10,000 of their own. So the net is that we're borrowing 100,000, and we break it into some operating cost and working capital, some office infrastructure, a marketing budget, and then professional development. Now you might ask, well, what if the client buys a Shelf Corp, but they don't want just 100,000, they want $1 million or multiple million or just any other amount? Well, that's fine. So then we would go in, we have the template, we have the base case, then we can go in and make changes to increase the amounts. But if we're going to change these amounts, we also have to go change the forecast to make sure that we're going to be able to afford it. So My goal today isn't to train you on how to use the software, but I wanted to do a couple things. First of all, I wanted to let you know that this is a pretty sophisticated approach in building a loan package where we're looking at industry benchmarks. We know the questions that the lenders are going to typically ask, and those questions will vary by industry code. But for the Shelf Corps, we keep it simple. All the Shelf Corps are management consulting. If a client's doing the 4-week funding program, we call that the build, then that's custom and that could be something completely different, whatever their industry is. But this is the easiest and fastest way to get funding. So, who has questions regarding shelf corporations, what they are, how they benefit, or for those of you that have bought a shelf corporation? Again, Corinthian's not bought one, she's bought two. So, Corinthian, we need to make sure that you're set up, that you're generating not just this forecast of, let's get back over to second half of the year. So, Corinthian, let's look at December. Our goal for you, Corinthian, isn't just to bring in 150,000, it's to bring in this times two of earned income, 300,000. Same for you, Mr. Brown. Same for you. Mr. Harris is on now. Mr. Harris, you came in late. So, but you're welcome. So we need to make sure that we realize that what we're doing is real. It's not made up. It's not monopoly money. So when we provide a client a shelf corporation, sure, we're helping them qualify for a loan. Yes. And that may be what the primary carrot is. But I think you have a responsibility to let them know it doesn't stop there. It gets better. It gets better. In addition to that, we're going to help you liquidate the 100,000 of AR. And in addition to that, this is a real business that should be earning income. And some of you, no offense, Corinthian, you're not earning income with your two shelf corps. So we need to do something afterwards. I need any of you that needs help monetizing your shelf corp, please, please, please reach out to Madison. She was out Friday. She's back in the office today. Give her a call. Let's make sure that your shelf corps are cash flowing strong, because strong cash flowing businesses have more borrowing capacity. Okay, so who has questions, comments, concerns? I need to open it up for our last 7 minutes. What is it that you need to know to either be able to better sell Shelf Corps, or I guess if you're thinking about getting one yourself, but I'm not trying to sell anything to you, but this needs to be support calls as well as training. So hopefully I've given you a nice behind the scenes look at some of the technology and tools that we use, the industry data. What is it that you need? Mr. Lind, welcome to the Zoom. What do you need from me, Mr. Lind, so you can go sell a Shelf Corp today? And I guess I'll just ask that question of every one of you, because you're very gracious with your time to show up, but you should be on these trainings if what you're wanting to do is make money by selling Shelf Corps. So, Joseph asked, what is this Oh, no, we provide this. So remember, we're your back office. We're not trying to get you to learn how to do all the technical advisory services. If we were to do that, it would take months and months of training. So if you're a management consultant, you're out selling shelf corporations and our team's doing the implementation. Sorry for the confusion. Yeah, I'm not trying to say, oh, guess what? You need to know how to manage all of this and do all of this. No, that would be a lofty goal. Not saying you couldn't do it, but that would take time and effort away from what you're really supposed to be doing, Joseph, which is enrolling clients. But let's go back to it. So accountability time, right? We're a third of the way through the month. No offense, Mr. Lind, but you've enrolled no one. You've enrolled no one so far this month. Not complaining, not venting. Let's fix that. Let's get our first shelf client enrolled today, Mr. Lind. What is it you need from us? Because obviously we're not doing enough. Same with you, Mr. Ryans. You're on training regularly. It's awesome to see your name, but you're not producing. So that's our failure, not yours. What is it, Mr. Ryans, that we're not doing so you can't go make money in selling shelf corporations? This is a really good deal for the client. It's an extraordinarily good deal, right? They pay 1,000 down, you keep half, send us the other half. We set up financing for the rest, and from it, what do they get? They get a fundable business to go get a loan, low interest loan. They get 100,000 of AR, which we help them liquidate, and it's earned income. I think when some of it, take Corinthian again. I love talking to Corinthian. We talk often. I think Corinthian, you're a little spoiled. I think some of you make so much money that when you're like, oh, I don't know, an extra 120,000 a month, I don't know if it's worth my time. Well, to a lot of people, they don't make 120,000 in a year. And for these shelf corporations, they're real, and they should be making by January 180,000 a month. I think if you realize, some of you, Rachel, and some of you that are so successful, not everyone's as successful as you are, right? Celino, not everyone drives a Bugatti. You may, but not everyone else does. This is a really good deal for the average person. Get them a fundable business so they can get the loan they want, help them liquidate the AR, and then help them earn an adult income. It's a big deal. All right. So Celino asks, what type of business do you suggest for making earned income? Well, that's the whole point. That's literally what we're talking about. And I failed you, Celino. We're talking about what? We're talking about management consulting services. And when they get a Shelf Corp, we provide everything that they need to go make money. Al's asking if we have a call for today. I have no idea, Al. I'm in the middle of teaching a Zoom with 527 people, so I apologize. I don't know what my calendar is today. Okay, so what questions do any of you have? Because if you understand the value proposition of the shelf, then you should be out making money selling shelf corporations. But some of you are, some of you aren't. I see Harold on. Harold, I need your permission. May I tell, without too much detail, because Harold, if I recall correctly, you sold 38 shelf corporations over the weekend. 38. Harold, may I have your permission telling everyone your target audience? All right, he said yes. Harold focuses on network marketers, people that sell Avon and prepaid legal, which is called Legal Shield, and all these. There's network marketing models all over all over the country. Most of those individuals do not have a true entity. So that's his target market. He targets network marketing professionals who then buy Shelf Corps. Don't think it works? He sold 38 Shelf Corps since we closed 5 o'clock Friday. So you can pick certain industries to go to, but regardless, if you run into a small business owner that's looking for money to start or grow a business, in most cases, the Shelf Corp model is the best way. Now, I realize we're not going through all the value proposition of the Shelf Corp today, but I wanted to make sure that you understood from an economic perspective these three areas. Some of you are very sophisticated, so you understand what we're saying. Some of you don't really have much of an economic background. But Mr. Harris, again, welcome. You're one of our shelf clients. Mr. Harris, we need to make sure, let's get rid of profit and loss. Mr. Harris, we need to make sure that you are seeing this type of revenue. Same for Corinthian, times 2. Corinthian didn't buy one shelf, she bought 2. Mr. Brown bought one. So if you need any help, let us know. The goal is to get together and try to support you. But if you need individualized assistance, give Madison a call. And we will be back tomorrow morning, Tuesday morning. Thanks, everyone. Talk to you soon.